What's happening, guys? Today, we've got a special treat for you. We have somewhat of a history lesson of one of the greatest men ever to swing a leg over a motorcycle. He's an AMA Hall of Famer, and if you haven't figured it out by now, by me standing in front of this bike, I'll tell you, Dick Mann. This is a Dick Mann replica, one of only 150 ever made, close to 50 years ago. One of the few true survivors. There's only less than 12 of these known to still exist in museums across the country. This one is a part of the collection of five-time national champion Paul Pincinel himself. He's getting up there in years and decided he needed some money to fix his barn and sold this and some other classics. This is exactly the way it came out of his collection. It has the tires on it, in fact, had ice racing screws in it last time it was raced at the Sturbridge, Mass ice races. So in any event, it is in need of a restoration. We didn't even wash it. We did nothing. This is exactly the way it came out. We wanted to show it with the barn fresh or shop fresh patina, if you will. And you can see there's no lipstick on a pig here. This is an original Dick Mann replica frame that appears to be in excellent condition. I'll tell you a little bit about the history of Dick Mann. He was born June 13th, 1934. An American former professional motorcycle racer, a two-time winner of the AMA Grand National Championship Series. Mann was inducted in the Motorsports Hall of Fame in America in 1993. He also obviously designed and built this frame. He was also inducted in the Motorcycle Hall of Fame in 98 and was one of the few riders who rode motocross, observed trials, as well as dirt flat tracks, TT, Tourist Trophy, and road racing. In fact, he's one of the few ever to win the Grand Slam of professional motorcycle racing, which is winning all four of those championships, which is unheard of. Very few people have done that. Mann was the second winningest rider in the AMA Grand National Series history with 24 national victories. His career on the pro circuit spanned from the early 50s to the mid-70s, and he was the oldest man to win a national championship. He was also known for being one of the most talented and versatile riders and for wearing a cheap straw hat while working on his motorcycle. It was kind of a personality. And I have a story I want to share with you guys from a very good friend of ours, James Hollerick. How old's James now? Dick Mann was born, I think, in 35, so Dick Mann would have been, he'd been in his 80s. I'm pretty sure Jim Hollerick's in his 80s. Jim Hollerick owns the Trail Bike Museum. He actually has several of these in his inventory, fully restored. He told me that him and Dick Mann were at a Christmas party at one of the old mills, one of the factories that Dick Mann and him had worked at, and Dick Mann grabbed a piece of paper, he grabbed a piece of chalk and drew out the concept for this frame on the floor with him and James Hollerick, who was another old-time famous racer, famous museum owner in the industry. And they actually designed it on the floor of the mill, of the factory, the general concept for it. And then he went on and had it designed, on a CAD table. Back then they didn't have computers, so it was done by pencil, and they built the frame. But the original concept came to fruition at a Christmas party. So kind of a cool story. So Dick was born in Salt Lake City, Utah. He rode his first motorcycle as a teenager and also rode cow trails a lot and started helping at the Motorcycle Hall of Fame Hap Alzheimer's BSA shop in Oakland as a mechanic. So he had a Motorcycle Hall of Fame guy who's mentored him when he was a young kid and probably had a big impact on who he became. In the summer of '54, he started touring as an amateur with professional Al Gunter. Mann turned expert in '55 and finished 7th on a Harley Davidson in his first Grand National race. That's unheard of today for someone to show up at a national and finish 7th in the top 10 as a privateer. Doesn't happen. Showed the true greatness he had. So that was at the Daytona 200, of course, which is one of the most highest ranked races you could ever be in. At this time, back then, that was when Daytona raced on the beach. It was half sand, half street. If you've been to Daytona, now it's at the International Speedway. It was a totally different event back then. He slowly made a name for himself in the first 3 years, and he finished in the top 10 in season points for the first time in '57. Mann had a second-place finish at the Daytona 200 in Laconia in 1958. He had his first national victory at the Peoria, Illinois Tourist Trophy in '59, and he finished second in points in that year. In the '60s, in 1963, Mann won his first AMA Grand National title. He had 5 podium finishes, and he clinched the title by winning on September 21st, Ascot Park in Gardena, California. He continued to win races and place high in the point standings before his next title 8 years later. He also helped pioneer motocross during that time and raced in several motocross races in the 60s and 70s. He also represented the United States in the transatlantic match races. The series faced little-known American racers against Great Britain's well-known pavement riders. So in the 70s, he had the biggest win of his career. He won the 1970 Daytona 200, a race that he had not won in 15 prior attempts. He beat former world champion Mike Halewood and rising stars Gene Romero and Gary Nixon. I actually have a Gary Nixon jacket. If you ever see me wear that number 9 jacket, that's a Gary Nixon replica jacket that I have that was given to me by a good friend as a present. My favorite jacket, absolutely. So, yeah, those guys were the true heroes of those days. So, in 1971, Mann won his second Grand National title on a BSA. He became the oldest series champion in the history of the series. In 1971, at 36 years old, he won the Houston TT. He won his second Daytona 200 in the second race of the season, and the winner earned him a spot on the 71 May cover of the AMA magazine. Mann also won road races at Pocono Raceway in Kent, Washington. He was named AMA's most popular rider of the year in 1971, and Mann became the first rider to win motorcycle racing's, as I said earlier, career Grand Slam by winning a Grand National title on mile, half mile, TT, and road racing circuits. Mann won races in 72. His final win was in Peoria at the site of his first win. What a great way to close his racing chapter. He won at his last race at the track he won his first race on. How cool is that? He was competitive in 73 and finished in the top 10 points at the age of 40 years old, which was unheard of at that time. Mann retired in 74. He had raced in 240 nationals, and he finished in the top 10 in points in every season, which is remarkable, consistent between 57 and 73. In 75, he did some trail riding. He competed in the United States International 6 Days team and also raced the Isle of Man, earning a bronze medal on an OSSA 350. What a remarkable racing career. What a guy. Mann was awarded the AMA Dud Perkins Award for his contributions to the sport in 1995. He was inducted in the Motorsports Hall of Fame of America in 1993. And he was still competing in vintage racing when he was inducted in the Motorcycle Hall of Fame in 1998. The Motorcycle Hall of Fame also opened an exhibit honoring Mann's career on July 27, 2006. The exhibit is called Superman, which is what this guy was, Superman, on a motorcycle. Over 400 people came to see the opening. Throughout his racing career, we get into now his design and fabrication element, which is huge. This guy had a huge impact on the sport of motorcycling. Throughout his racing career, Mann was an innovative designer and fabricator of frames and related hardware. He was brilliant. He was a mechanical genius, and he also worked for and acted as a consultant to several motorcycle manufacturers. In 1966, Dick Mann designed and fabricated a large diameter backbone chromoly frame for the BSA A65. Elements of its geometry became the hallmark of several of his designs because it worked so good. In 1967, he was retained by John Taylor of Yankee Motor Corp and incorporated the same design elements in the Yankee 500Z. I didn't know that until today doing a little research, so that's pretty remarkable. The Yankee 500Z, Jim Hollerick has those in his collection also. Fantastic machine with a OSSA 250 motor that was mated together, two 250s to make it a 500cc two-stroke twin. What a badass machine. It's an off-road machine. Very, very rare piece. I think they made, I don't know how many they made, but I think it was only like several hundred of those. In 1969, while with Yankee, which had the OSSA-derived engine, he designed and worked with Frank Connor of OSSA West to build this bike you're looking at right here today. So everything I told you now, up to now, is pertinent because it showed a man of great racing pedigree, great racing accomplishments, a man who did things that weren't done at the, rarely have ever duplicated. The Grand Slam, winning all 4 national championships, winning on the podium, at 40 years old, just unheard of. So after winning, so he worked. Frank Connor was the OSSA West guy, and they worked together to build this highly successful OSSA DMR flat tracker. And as I said earlier, him and Jim Hollerick sketched this thing out on the floor of a mill much like ours many moons ago at a Christmas party after having a few beers. So after winning several national races, this Dick Mann replica was put into a short run of production. So they built the bike, bought it out, smoked the factory teams on this bike right here. This bike was the same exact model that won multiple national AMA Grand Championship races. So they said, let's build one for the masses. Let's build one for the local guys that can take it ice racing and flat tracking. And the DMR, this bike right here, the Dick Mann replica, was put into a short run of production by Yankee. So Yankee is the company who produced it to Dick's spec because Dick had designed the Yankee frame for them, and it was working closely with OSSA. So they put 2 and 2 together and built this one of a kind. Only 150 units being produced in 1970 and 1971. So hey, let's do the math here. 150 of these were made 50 years ago, and they were raced in the Grand National Circuit. Most of them were cartwheeled and smashed and bent and broken. Here's one that survived and was put away after a career of racing, waiting for you to buy it and pull it down to the frame and restore it. And if you don't, we're going to do it. If it doesn't sell in the next couple of weeks, we're backed up a little bit, but Kyle's going to take it down to the frame, and him, Doc, and the Wizard are going to restore it, and it's going to be a $15,000 motorcycle. So, and you may not like the way we do it. You might want to paint it a different color. We're going to put it up for a limited time offer, a couple weeks. If it sells, we'll have a very reasonable reserve, under $5,000 on the bike, and you can take it and craft it into whatever you want to. So do another lap around it, and I'll close out the presentation here by saying, like I said, less than 12 of these that I know of to exist. I've never seen one come up for sale, period, ever, in the 10 years here at the museum. Ken, have you ever seen one of these come up for sale? Because there's none for sale, just this one. So if you want it, start bidding. Call us. Click to buy it now. Whatever you got to do, but get it, because when it's gone, there's not another one out there to buy. So Dick Mann was influential on styling. The design elements of an earlier BSA of Dick's appeared on the OSSA Wildfire SS tank in '67, the Dick Mann replica tank, and the tank and seat that graced the first 500Z Yankee prototypes in '68. That prototype had influence on later designs such as Craig Vetter's Triumph X75 Hurricane. If you've been following the Triumph X75 Hurricane, I was at an auction in Daytona at Bike Week the year before last. One that did not run, that was intact, had about low miles, 2,000 miles, but hadn't run in ages, sold for $23,000, and it needed a restoration. Extremely rare, the Craig Vetter Triumph X75 Hurricane. Now, I don't have a comparable sale to base what this bike's worth off of, but I can tell you for $5,000, you can do a world-class frame-off restoration, including completely rebuilding the motor, crank, transmission, everything, and painting it, new tires and shocks. $5,000. So, and it's going to be worth triple that. So do the math. So in 1975, Mann started designing frames for Yamaha. He did 200 of the XT500s. Never seen one of those, by the way. Have you ever seen a Dick Mann replica XT500? No. Why? Because there's only 200 of them. That's why. So he sold the 200 frames. The final frame they built was 1982. He also designed variations for the Honda XL and XR500 and the Suzuki DR SP370. Again, unobtainium. They're not around. You can't find them. All the production frames were constructed by Terry Knight based on each of Mann's home-built and extensively tested prototypes. Hundreds of hours, thousands of hours went into designing and crafting these frames, and they were built by. They were constructed, all these production frames were constructed by Terry Knight on the Suzuki, Honda, and Yamaha. So he owned a business specializing in restoring and selling vintage race motorcycles. And even him himself sold very few of these because they were all gone. He did other ones. He also continued to participate in the American Historic Racing Motorcycle Association, with his lovely wife, Kay, by his side in vintage motocross racing. If you want to learn more about this unique, phenomenal legend of this sport, you can Google Dick Mann, Motorcycle Museum Hall of Fame. There's actually a book written by Ed Youngblood, Man of His Time, by Ed Youngblood. White Horse Press produced that in 2002. There's a biography of Ed, which much of this presentation was taken from that source. Some of the other references were the Motorcycle Museum Hall of Fame. If you Google Dick Mann at the AMA Hall of Fame, that'll come up. If you Google opening of Superman, SUPERMANN, the exhibit honoring the legendary Dick Mann, that drew a record crowd to the museum when they opened that. And, also, Dick Mann Wayback Machine, Motorsports Hall of Fame of America. That was in 1993. And also Daytona 200 winners at motorsportsetcetera.com. There's a write-up there. May 1970 American Motorcyclist Magazine also had a big article on him. And Dick Mann at the Motorsports Hall of Fame. Those are 7 sources if you want to find out more about this frame and how rare it really is. You know, hey, listen, go back on our channel. How often do we sell a bike like this as is? Never, almost never. We usually take them apart and restore them because being a shop, we can do it for a little less than anybody else can. But I know what this bike is. You know what this bike is if you've stayed with me this long. So you might understand that someone who's going to build this and race it or put it in their museum or display it in the man room may want to do it their own way. So we're giving you the opportunity to do that. If you want to hire us to restore it after it's done, we'll gladly restore it for you. It's $90 an hour plus time and material, depending on what fit and finish you want to do. I would love to restore it for you. Probably take us a few months, maybe 6 months tops. But if you want to buy it and leave it here in the museum, just the way it is, I'd love to have it just the way it is. But if you want it totally restored, we can do that also. So give us a call if you have any questions, 860-454-7024. Before I forget, there is another swing arm that comes with this bike. That is on Billy Blythe's desk because Billy thought he was going to restore this. He was chomping at the bit. But we need to raise some money quick for the museum. The museum's closed, okay? The state closed it down because this goddamn COVID-19 bullshit. And it's the start of our busy season. We normally are having bands every Friday night. We're having Rock Stock is supposed to happen in 3 weeks. You know, we normally have hundreds of people coming through here every week. We have no income, yet we still have a $4 million fucking mortgage. So we got to sell some of the machines. As a matter of fact, everything in this row right here, take a walk down the row here. I got a brand new XR650L with 200 miles. It's just been all set up, desmogged with a pipe. Everything's been done on this. That's going up for sale. I've got a 2017 Dyna S. I've got a 2007 CVO. I've got a 2001 FX DXT. These are all my personal bikes. I'm selling them all to keep the museum going. And we're selling the Dick Mann replica too. If you want it, we're going to have a lot of nice machines coming out because we need to raise some money because that's the only thing keeping us from going out of business right now, selling bikes. So, and we're not going anywhere. I've got way too much skin in the game, 10 years here, and millions of dollars I've invested in this. So good luck buying this machine and have a ball restoring it, or we'll be happy to do it for you. Hopefully you have enough information to go on, but feel free to call us. Kenny, is there anything you'd like to add?
You can ship it anywhere in the States inexpensively. Message your zip code for a quote. Other than that, call us with any questions. I have nothing to say, guys.
It's going right back in the museum. It's on display in the racing section of the museum, exactly the way it is, because it's badass and cool. You can take it that way, or you can make it look brand new, whatever floats your boat. Good luck bidding, and as always, God bless America.